So I'll be honest with you guys, and I just told a buddy of mine this, but the whole last week, I mean every day, starting like I think at least Tuesday, I was having nightmares, all right? So nightmares about props moving all over the place, uncontrolled, all over the place. Nightmares about React errors on my console, all week. All right, so it's been a fun week. Week 7 Lambda School. Get ready for that.
Maybe I don't understand it. You're changing, I can't stand it. My heart can't take this damage.
All right, so welcome back, guys. Before I cover anything, I just want to make sure that I'm going over that I have a lot of stuff down there in the read me thing below. So if you guys have not clicked on that, make sure you do and just take a look at what I got. I have some cool references, some links to some of my friends' channels. I try to put down material for stuff that we learned, maybe some articles for that week, some cool stuff. I also have a GoFundMe page down there if you want to support the channel and support me while I'm going through Lambda School and putting out these videos. I would appreciate it. However, you do not absolutely have to. I'm still going to be putting out these videos every week. So without further ado, going to be going over what we went over last week, and it was a rough week. My personal experience is I kind of struggled a lot, so I was very confused, very lost. I reached out to some of the higher people. I mean, I honestly thought I was going to go into their MVP program, which is pretty much like a program where you go back 1 week and redo the week, but you're not going to be having live instructions. You're going to be watching the videos, and you'll have extra help from extra PMs, and they'll pretty much help kind of like guide you through. So I mean, I was messaging my PM and telling him, hey, I think this might be the week. So you know, it can get anybody. Everybody has bad weeks, but we made it through, and so we are going towards week 8. But before that, let's go over week 7. So first day, we learned React tooling. Not too bad. All it is really just create React app and just building a basic website with it, you know, putting little things together here and there and just messing with it. So nothing that bad. What messed me up was the next day. I did not know that we had to refactor some things, turn certain things into classes, moving things around and putting components inside of components that would end up in a container component. So I mean, and it's probably my fault. I'm figuring out that, hey, I need to read all of the instructions first before I start proceeding into what I'm doing. That'll probably save me a lot of time. Normally what I do personally is I go to step 1 and then I go off and do step 1. And then I come back and do step 2. You know, that's what I've been doing my entire life with everything. And so what I need to do, however, is read step 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, all the way on through before I act. And that's something that I'm learning about myself. So learning experiences every day. So React tooling was what we did, and all that is just create React app. I found out that there's an updated version of it, so I got to get used to using that. It's no longer just create React app and then put your app name. You can still use that version, but there's a whole different one. So we also learned about component life cycles. What component life cycles is when you mount your component, you're pretty much telling React that, hey, it's okay to send this data to the DOM. The current state that we have, that's what we're sending over, that's what we're using. And then you'll have component unmount. So you have an entire life cycle. You got the life of the state, and then from there it grows. You put in everything that you need to put in there, all your event listeners, everything that's happening during that page goes on, and then the component dies. You know, you take component unmount. Now, when you will use that is, let's say you're on a different page, you no longer need the event listeners to be listening in the background to do something for stuff that's not even on that page anymore. You may not even need the same data that's on there anymore. So you might be pulling data from a whole different JSON file or something. So you no longer need that data. So you'll unmount it. That way it's not eating up resources on whoever the customer is or viewer's computer. So that's what the component lifecycle is in a nutshell. The next thing that we learned was React composition patterns. And what that entailed, really, it's very confusing even to me now, but what that is higher order components. Now, if you heard of higher order functions, it's a very similar concept. Higher order functions is pretty much a function that uses another function to spit out some type of result. So if you're familiar with map, we personally like to use map in order to come up with some let's say a new div. Like, let's say you have an array of some kind, and you want to come up with an entire div full of that information. Like, you have an array that has an author, it also has a paragraph, it also has a picture, and there's like 6 or 7 of them. Instead of writing each individual one, one by one manually, you would use a map, and a map would pretty much create a whole new list with all that stuff on there. You could put divs around it, you can put the p tags around it, whatever you want, and it'll spit it out for you. And so the same thing kind of happens with a higher order component. What we used the higher order component for was for authentication. So we use local storage kind of as a fake back end. You use a local storage, somebody will sign into a page. First, they'll get the sign in page because you'll have the higher order component that'll double check whether or not they have anything in local storage, and if not, then it'll send them to the login page. Once they have that login in local storage, then it'll send them to the original website. So kind of like a cool little fake login page. And all it does is it's a component that takes in 2 components and kind of does an if-and statement or something like that, and there's a likelihood that it'll spit out one if these conditions are met, and if they're not, then it'll spit out this other one if they're met. So that's the easiest way that I can explain it. So the last thing that we learned was CSS and JavaScript. And I know some people hear that and they're like, what the hell? Why do we even need that? And I'm not going to lie, I spent the whole week wondering why the hell we even need that myself. And so I even asked a bunch of people, why do we need this? So the whole reason why you need this, or why you would want this, you don't necessarily need it, is because a lot of times, especially when building components, it's just easier if you have all your code in one file. So let's say I built my component on this JavaScript file. Just below it, I can put down the CSS code, but in JavaScript. And so you don't need a CSS file. Now, it's all up to personal preference. You can still build components just fine using preprocessors or just CSS. It's just one of those things where you won't really need class names. You won't need IDs or anything like that because everything's being targeted right then and there. You don't need specification. It's all being targeted right there. And so we learned that, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not something that I would go out of my way to use, but it's something that's really nice to have in your tool bag, in case you do want to use it at some point. What we also learned was about prop types, and what prop types is not something that comes with React. From what I hear, it comes with other languages such as TypeScript. I think Angular just uses that because it uses TypeScript. So there's a few other frameworks that'll have that. But React lets you import it in, and what you do with prop types is you pretty much decide what type this information is going to be. And what it does, or why you would use that, is because you might want to lock it down so that you can't just put any type of information, because JavaScript is a loose written language, as they call it. So when you're writing in other languages, you have to tell it what type of data you're going to put into this variable. In some, I think in C, you just put if you want to use an integer or a number, you would write int and then write what it is that you want. So int and then write it down. So in JavaScript, you don't need to do that. In JavaScript, you can say variable ABCD and then it equals to numbers. It doesn't matter. It does not care. So you would use prop types in order to lock that down so that you say, hey, this is expecting a string. If it doesn't get a string, it won't break your code, but you will get a warning in the console letting you know, hey, we're expecting a string. And so it's good for future developers who are looking at your code. Also good for yourself if you're looking at your code way down the line and you may have put something in there that doesn't need to be in there. You can always go back and change the prop type manually or whatever, but you know, if that's not what's expected, then you shouldn't do that. So those are the stuff that we learned for week 7 in Lambda School. A lot of cool material. I mean, it was pretty much mind-blowing. So hopefully this week won't be as savage as that week, but I doubt it. Every week has just been a little crazy. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments or something that you think that I could do better, maybe anything I could explain better or show you guys, then feel free to just put that in the comment below and I'll do the best I can with that. All right, see you guys next time.